Alright, it's November 11th, 2024 when I'm recording this. It's been 6 days since the 2024 United States general election. Donald Trump won the Electoral College and the popular vote, including all of the swing states. Okay. The comments are probably already on fire, aren't they? Let me clear something up real quick before we get started with today's topic. I am not apolitical. I have my own politics. I believe in certain things that you may not agree with. C'est la vie. The reason why I don't discuss politics on this channel very often is because, unfortunately, politics dominates every other facet of our lives. But we'll get into that more later. If you'd like to support me and check out a novel from an indie author, hit the link in the description and take a look at my sci-fi military series Blur Havoc. Or if you'd like, check out my Patreon, Subscribestar, or affiliate links. If anything, a like and subscription are enough. It would be much appreciated. So, what brings me down to the level of discussing politics? Well, due to the winner of the general election, people on social media are
frustrated. This is not okay. This simply will not do. Oh no!
Right? Like, it'll be like the first time, and then we're all gonna pull through fine in 4 years.
I'm literally sick. I'm literally sick to my stomach. I love all of this. Let's do it. Why?
Patriarchy wants us to be, because clearly they don't give a shit about us.
yeah. And because of this, we are getting some of the most ridiculous belly-aching nonsense I've ever seen. And I would have avoided making this video if it wasn't for one single tweet.
I feel like this movie is now even more relevant right now.
This is the clip they had attached to this tweet.
We were all born with transformation cogs, and then Sentinel, he stole them from us. He took away our ability to make our own decisions. He stole our freedom.
And of course, I threw my hat into the ring with a gently worded tweet.
Do not use this amazing scene as political symbolism because you're pissy that Trump won. Fuck off. This scene deserves better.
Okay, maybe it wasn't gently worded, but still, the post genuinely got under my skin. We haven't had a true to form Optimus portrayal in over a decade, and this is what people decided to use it for? Whining because Trump, a guy who was already president once before, won? We'll break down how much of a garbage parallel this is, by the way. So a day goes by and...
Oh my goodness!
Okay, I was not expecting that. But it caught the attention of this guy who couldn't even quote tweet or tag me because, as one of the replies said,
they don't tag you because they don't want an actual conversation of intellect to prove them wrong. They just want to win like the spoiled babies they are.
So now I've decided to dedicate a whole video on why this type of pandering political parallel, wow, say that 5 times fast, doesn't work and is only done to self-filate. Now, what's wrong with this allegory? The obvious reality is that Trump didn't do anything remotely as bad as Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime mutilated newborns before they were conscious, created a slave class and sold them a lie to get them to pay off his debt, killed the equivalent of Cybertronian Jesus's 12 disciples after betraying them to their mortal enemies, and exiled the exalted guardians who knew the truth to keep the lie in power. Please, anyone with common sense based in actual reality, explain to me how Trump did any of this. But that's just on the surface. When you actually look at the events of the film and line them up with their real life parallels, you realize that the film says the exact opposite of what the original tweet wanted to allude to. Sentinel Prime is the establishment power that has been in control. Orion is the leader of a rebellion from the working class against a system that pushes out lies to stay in power. And the Quintessons are the shadowy figures in the background who are the true leaders of Cybertron using Sentinel Prime as a puppet. Now, let's replace the names with real-world names. Joe Biden is the establishment power that has been in control. Donald Trump is the leader of a rebellion from the working class against a system that pushes out lies to stay in power, and the establishment are the shadowy figures in the background who are the true leaders of the United States, using Joe Biden as a puppet. Oops. You can't say Kamala and the Democrats are Orion and the miners because they were in power and in office for the past 4 years and had nearly all of the power. You can't say Trump is Sentinel Prime because he was a private citizen for 4 years and had no power in the government. You don't get to create a giant delusion just because your candidate lost. But this kind of political pandering bores me, especially since Transformers 1 already has a political message that remains timeless, which is the best kind of political message. Transformers 1 has a message about the dangers of state propaganda and unquestioning loyalty to a system that is clearly flawed. It also delves into the possible ways that one can become disenfranchised with the system once they learn how the sausage gets made. Orion chose to lead a resistance to reform the system, while D16 wanted an extrajudicial execution and a complete upheaval of the status quo. While the film leans towards believing that Orion's methods are the correct way, the film doesn't shy away from the reality that disenfranchisement can lead to violent extremism. It's a message that works regardless of who's in office because it's something we've seen throughout history. During the French Revolution, the rebellion were disenfranchised because they believed the political elites were not listening to them and were causing famines and financial crises across the country. The Russian Revolution was the same way. Political leaders were steering the country in a direction the populace did not want. They pushed too far, and the disenfranchised rose up, and many people died. Our own country, the United States of America, revolted against the British when they decided to tax the colonists without proper representation in the British Parliament. Violent acts such as the Boston Massacre and attempts from the British government to disarm American militias led to the American Revolution and the severing of the British government from American soil. Another example of a political message that works is Shin Godzilla. I've already discussed this before, but Shin Godzilla probably has one of the heaviest and arguably best political messages in all of the Godzilla franchise. In Shin Godzilla, Godzilla is this ever-evolving monstrosity that begins life in Tokyo Bay. At first, it is non-aggressive. The destruction it causes is not on purpose. It just accidentally destroys things because it is a being that is simply too big for this world. The Japanese government, however, takes forever to deal with it, being indecisive and inefficient by bouncing orders and information up and down the chain of command. For Christ's sake, they have meetings about having meetings in this movie. By the time they decide to inform the public of what to do to avoid Godzilla, the situation has drastically changed and the warnings they've given are no longer useful. It isn't until Godzilla takes its fourth form days later that the government finally decides to attack it. However, their attacks are ineffective and they decide that the best course of action would be to evacuate, despite the fact that they probably should have evacuated way sooner than now. Later, the US arrives and hits Godzilla with a big-ass bomb that actually manages to injure it, but Godzilla hits them with what is easily the best atomic breath attack out of all the Godzilla films I've seen. This attack kills the Prime Minister and his cabinet and incinerates large swaths of the Japanese population trying to escape Tokyo. The UN warns the interim Prime Minister that they need to get this situation under control or they will vote to nuke Japan off the face of the earth to get rid of Godzilla and keep their country safe. It isn't until the protagonist Yaguchi is given the power to be proactive with his team and research the giant monster that they actually form a plan that can put Godzilla into a frozen hibernation and end the threat of thermonuclear devastation from the UN. Although Shin Godzilla was written to be an allegory for the 2011 Fukushima triple disaster and the government's inadequate response to it, Shin Godzilla has a timeless message of being wary of relying on the government to keep you safe, as the bloated bureaucratic process cannot relay information to the citizens quickly enough to save them from a rapidly evolving situation. It isn't until the bloat and red tape is removed that the government can move faster and be proactive. This is a message that can apply apply to anyone, anywhere when it comes to natural disasters or emergencies. That's what makes a political message good, when it is timeless and can be applied to any era. But what happens when you have a story that wants to tell a political message, but is too chicken shit to say anything of value? Well, you get this year's Civil War. I'm certain most of you forgot about this movie. Looking back at Civil War, I'm struggling to put together what the political message of this movie was. The most I can come up with is journalists are the real heroes, which is A, not a political message, and B, not something even remotely agreed upon. It was a film that was too afraid of offending conservatives, and it was definitely too afraid of offending liberals. It has been 10 months and we still don't know what the Antifa massacre was. Knowing the context for that event would actually give us something to work with in regards to figuring out what this movie had to say. We don't get told why Texas and California are working together when they are basically arch enemies in real life. What even started the Civil War, and why did the president disband the FBI? I don't even recall that last one even being in the movie proper.
I'm not gonna softball him, Sammy. In retrospect, Mr. President, do you still think it was wise to disband the FBI? Passive aggressive.
So let's workshop this a little bit. Here's a few details we could have added that would have given us a stronger message. The Antifa massacre. It was the government who massacred Antifa. Why? Because the president saw them as a destabilizing element in his plan and had to start putting them down. Where are the Proud Boys? Put them in. Make them an anarcho-tyranny faction that causes chaos in non-allied states because they support the fascistic president. Why are there two whole factions that basically go unmentioned the whole movie? The Florida Alliance should be trying to attack the fascistic president because the president betrayed them after he pulled his troops out during a fight against the Western forces, leaving the Florida Alliance to broker peace with Texas and California on their own. The New People's Army should be trying to de-escalate because they have the weakest infrastructure and have been hit the hardest by this civil war. Explain how Texas and California are working together when they have wildly different cultures. California has the money and people while Texas has the infrastructure and weaponry, but they both hate this president. And finally, have the journalists tag along with Western Forces troops as they ride a caravan towards DC, meeting members of the other factions and allowing us to get their perspectives on this world. What this does is it creates a wholly different message. It shows us how truly fractured the United States is even without a civil war. We have varying cultures, segmented infrastructure, and intensely differing views on what is right and wrong. However, we also have more similarities than we initially believe, and uniting under a common cause can bring out the best in our country. So let's get back to what I started this video with. I am not apolitical. I have my own politics. I believe in certain things that you may not agree with. C'est la vie. The reason why I don't discuss politics on this channel very often is because, unfortunately, politics dominates every other facet of our lives. I want to focus on the writing quality of media through an apolitical, non-topical lens, because that is how you truly test the strength of a writer's skill. It gets really boring having to cover the same orange man bad and conservatives are racist meanie head stories. Do not get it twisted. I am highly engaged in politics in my personal life. I listen to politics at least once a day, every day. It frustrates me when I've been engaged in the game for all 4 quarters and someone who just started watching in the 4th quarter makes up complete nonsense gobbledygook over bruised emotions when they haven't been paying attention to the game's first 3 quarters. Rinse and repeat every 4 years. It's not a matter of disagreeing, it's a matter of making false parallels because of a belief in several lies. For example, the people in my personal life who keep telling me black people are going to be slaves again under Trump.
Shut up, man!
But politics in media is not something I want removed. What I want removed is political partisan pandering that is either baked into the writing or forced onto a film when it doesn't belong by its audience. I am tired, absolutely exhausted of digs at Trump, and I would be just as tired if there were constant digs at Obama, Hillary, Biden, or Kamala. To wrap this up, there's a meme that perfectly encapsulates my point. All games are political, says the extremely smart individual who can't tell the difference between Metal Gear Solid, BioShock, and this picture. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.